when whenever the Creator gives a promise, right? Whenever He gives a promise, what happens is that a promise is different from a prophecy. Okay, so it's different from a prophecy, because a prophecy is going to happen no matter what. So no matter how anyone tries to manipulate it, or try to stop it, or try to change it, it doesn't matter, because everything, even in our thoughts, let's say the Most High gives a prophecy about just any event. Well, it can't be manipulated by mankind at all. Mankind, even in its best efforts, can do things, but even those things were already predestined to be done. That's going to help orchestrate the prophecy to be fulfilled, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we talk about a promise, a promise is there's some contingencies to it. There's a two-way street. There's a two-way participation. So when he gives this promise, if you notice, first of all, just to kind of get a little deep into it, if you notice that when Moses tells the children of Israel what Hashem is promising, they really didn't pay any attention to him. That's that's something to kind of go back and look at. But let's get to what actually happens. We know that in the wilderness, that our ancestors they were cutting up. They were they were not doing right. And so when they get to I believe it's in the book of Numbers, when they get to Padam, to the wilderness of Paran, what we see Moses sending the spies out, right? Now, geographically, if you go back to Joshua, and matter of fact, let me get it. Let me get it real quick here. Give me that tonight, man. Yeah, that's in the book of Joshua. If you notice, I added that to it. It let's get there. Let's see. Now in Joshua, yeah. If you look at what he says here we go. Chapter 1 of the book of Joshua says, and it happened after the death of Moses, servant of Hashem, that Hashem said to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' attendant, saying, Moses, my servant, has died. Now let's keep going. Let's go down to verse 3. He says, every place upon which the sole of your foot would tread, I have given unto you, as I spoke to Moses, from the desert, which is the wilderness, and this Lebanon, unto the great river, the Euphrates River, all the land of the Hittites, until the great sea toward the setting down of the sun, will be your boundary. And when you go back historically and you look at the land of the Canaanites, and you look at the whole land of the Hittites and the Amorites, what you're going to find is that Israel is a lot bigger than what the boundaries state today. Okay, and so the boundaries have always been getting moved. So when they get to the wilderness of Paran, they're actually in the land of the Hittites. So they all got there. But Moses, he sends out the spies to go and spy out the land for them to start taking possession of it. And so because at first, it wasn't even, he didn't even really need to have the spies go out. They wanted to see the land. Moses was ready to go. He was ready, let's go in. But there was some issues there. And so when they come back, they bring back this evil report. when they bring that evil report in, it causes the people's heart to grow faint. So that's why I was saying that the Most High brought them there. He brought them there. But because their heart grew faint, they turned around. Now, this also is, I believe, is dealing with the correction of the soul. Just like when we talked about Adam and Eve, how they failed at correcting their soul, so they didn't really partake upon the tree of life. They didn't. They got kicked out of the garden. But the tree was there, so the promise was there. He said, of all these trees you can have, but they did not embrace and were able to walk into the fullness of that promise. But it's now the next generation does. You see? So he kept his word to the first group and the second group. Because ultimately, a promise is not prophecy. A promise is dealing with the fact that, you know what? This is my desire for you. This is what I'm going to do. But guess what? If you don't want to receive it, you can turn away from it. You can reject it. You know? And so just like us being gathered together, he promises to gather us together. And he promised to bring us back home, bring us back into the land. But the one of the issues that we may have is that you find, I can't think of the name of what prophet is in. He says that I'm going to destroy the places that Jacob loves. So there's going to be a group of Israelites that is going to want to stay or have a very intimate relationship with the nations that they've been scattered to.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So the promise is there, it's there. But the Most High is not going to manipulate our minds and control us or try to, manipulate our situation so that he can keep his word. Right? His word is going to be kept, but we're the ones that break that. We don't fulfill that end of the deal.
No, it's powerful. So let's just go. Just look at the pasuk, and let's talk it up, because I hear everything you're saying, and the thing is that we'll go into this. This is going to be very good. Okay, so you guys see the screen? You're good? Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't see it.
Right,
oh no, I can't see the screen.
Yeah, you can.
It looked like it's not yet.
Okay, hold on. I'll go back. Okay, so this is the thing. So the thing is like this. How do we, because one of the things that we want to inspire is a learning culture, right? And a culture where people are asking questions, people are inquisitive, and they are, looking for sources that can answer those questions, right? So the challenges is like this, is that the traditional way that we've been taught, like we have an amazing insight, like we're talking this out, right? Like the question that we're trying to understand is, we'll go into it, but we'll go into the whole question. But the point is just saying, how do we get to a point where it's my intellect, but in association with a tradition, right? It's my intellect, but it's in conjunction with, a tradition. What does that mean? So I remember when I first came to yeshiva, I was a good communicator, had ideas, very naturally spiritual, right? And so, but one rabbi suggested to me, he said, "Wow, you could be a really like impactful speaker in the, in everything." I was like, "Okay, thanks." He said, "But the one thing you got to do is," he says, "if you read something and you have a great idea about what it means," he said, "you have to put in the work to find sources that agree with that idea." And what that does is that when we talk to the student, now the student has not just a point of reference as me as a teacher, but even past me, right? They have access to the whole Masorah and that takes away control, right? Because normally the dynamic is that there's this wise teacher and they have all this information and you have to come to them for some type of guidance, right? And I think that's the beginning where corruption starts, right? And so what we want to do is that we want to empower households, right? So so let's look at this verse and just see maybe the conclusion in the process of how it came to this conclusion could maybe be a mechanism that we could use in the future as well, right? This is a mechanism, right? So so I would just like always, I got to learn. That's one of the great gifts of being a teacher is that you're forced to learn a lot, right? So, anyways, okay, it's like this. Okay, so let's check it out. So look at this verse. So this is chapter 6, verse 8, right? So the verse says like this. It says, okay, veheveti I mean techem al haaretz asher nasati et. So he says, and I will bring you into the land, right? Sorry, leyadia letin otar leavara. So okay, Yitzhak, sorry, Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov. All right, so I'm going to bring you to the land that I swore to give to your ancestors, right? And it says, Vena tati ata lechem. So here's the key word right here. Morasha, right? So what is morasha? It means possession, right? This is what the word means. It means possession, right? So, okay, so that's what the verse says, right? So, hey, want to see some commentaries on this thing? Who's talking about it? Wow, Rambam, Ben Ezra, all these people, humongous, Chafetz Chaim, this person, wow, wow. So I get to my favorite commentator, Orach Chaim, and I have a whole history of like going to visit him and where he's buried, the whole thing. Okay, so what does Orach Chaim say about this? Curious. He starts off saying it is difficult to reconcile this promise. This is Orach Chaim, like one of the greats of all time, right? Who's totally connected to like the world of like purity and this, whatever, right? Just like we are. We have this in common. He says it's difficult to reconcile the promise with our tradition that God speaks, he speaks nothing but truth, right? When we know that the generation God was addressing at the time did not go to the Holy Land, did not get to the Holy Land. Only the children of the generation, only the children of that generation actually crossed the Jordan, right? And took possession of the land of Canaan. He said, so every one of the people who left Egypt at the age of 20 or over died. He says died over the way, right? The desert, the whole thing. The people who left at the age of 20, right? Our problem is even more serious when we view the statement of the sages in the Midrash for this. And he says the word lachem, lachen, he says, which is in 6:6. If we go up a little bit, 6:6. Well, we do that, we miss it. Okay. Anyway, so he says the word lachem is in the form of an oath. Okay. So this is where I'm going. So this is where I got this question from. Right. So I'm reading this. This is where I got this question. I was like, wow, what we used to call it, we call in yeshiva a bomb kasha. Right? Kasha mean question. Bomb mean boom. Right? This is a huge question. What's going on? Right? The Torah says he's going to bring you out. He's going to give it to you as a possession. Right? But then the Orach Chaim goes and he goes. So now Orach Chaim is going to attempt to reconcile it for us. But I didn't like his response. I thought it was okay. But I found another response even better. So we're going to figure it out, right? But I'm showing you the process of even like how I'm connecting, because yes, like I could read it and just think to myself and say, it means this. But that only means something to me. It's more holy when I take my thoughts and I try to try to mish them with Hashem's path of holiness, which is all the leaders that we have throughout history, and to learn their thoughts on this situation and to find people at different time periods that connect to the idea that Hashem blessed me with now. So it's not a devoiding of uniqueness, right? But it's to say, but rather I want to connect myself to the sphere of thought that has existed throughout the ages in terms of Torah thought on all the four corners of the world, right? And you see how the Jews have been dispersed, and there's scholars all over. So we're scholars from North America. So we want to be able to plug our thoughts into the total system, right? Okay. So we're going to see how he reconciles this. And first of all, this isn't the class. This is just a side thing. We're talking, I sent out a question, and the question is basically what Or Chaim said. How can God promise to Moshe that I will bring you, Techem, right? I'm going to bring you into the land, Al Haaretz, right? I'm going to bring you into land that I swore, right? Nishnati, right? To give to Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. And I will give it to you for a possession. Okay, but I'm saying the Torah explicitly says, now, is there ways to connect? Like you did a beautiful job, right? Like you have so much Torah knowledge and so many things. So you brought these points. And you know what? Every single point that you're saying, there's probably 100% connection there, right? But the key thing is we have to find sources that connect to the thought. Yeah, you can always do it on your own. And people have, unique thoughts that no one thought of before, right? But we're in the conversation of all the Torah thinkers that have existed throughout history. We're in that conversation too. We come from the African American community. We come from North America. We come from all these unique experiences. So the Torah that we come out with is unique to those experiences, right? But nevertheless, we're part of the collective, right? Okay, so this is how he reconciles. We'll see where he goes. I wasn't so touched by it, okay? But he says like this: I believe that God himself was already aware of this problem. And that is why he prefaced the statement before, I will bring you to the land, etc., with the words, you will know that I am merciful, God, who is about to take you out under the slave labor of Egypt. The two statements are to be considered as conditional, kind of like I think maybe you're saying this. It should be considered as conditional. What God meant is because we're trying to understand the verse, right? Not necessarily the implications of the argument, but the words themselves, right? God is speaking to him. He's trying to understand the words. Now, there's other commentaries that deal with the broader structure, right? Everyone's a different thinker, right? So there's some thinkers like I really connect to the Or Chaim because he's very contemplative. He's very he's very his delivery is very for me it's very smooth and it's clear and okay. So he says what God meant is simply this. This is how he's trying to reconcile it, okay? So this is fun. This guy existed hundreds of years ago reading his ideas, right? It's amazing, right? But it doesn't mean it negates my own personal thought. I'm just part of the world of Torah and Torah thought. And that's the privilege, right? That we're a part of this great conversation that happens every generation. Okay, he said, what God meant was simply this, provided that you will realize that I am the one who will take you out of Egypt, and that I have destroyed and I have demonstrated. Sorry, I have demonstrated to the merciful God. And that I have demonstrated to be the merciful God. Then you will also experience that I shall bring to you the land which I have sworn to your fathers, and will give it to you as an inheritance. Which he said, and God was very careful to insert this condition in that in the very midst of the promise he made, and not only as an afterthought. In the event that the Israelites would not fulfill the conditions laid down in history, would have to take its course in accordance with their conduct. So I think you were kind of saying that too. Like they kind of did go in, but they didn't go in because they got scared with the spies. I think if you were re-explaining that idea, you could say, yeah, in the Orachaim says like this. And it's exactly like how you were just saying it, right? You're saying it's like it was kind of a conditional. It wasn't you're saying almost exactly like he said, right? No prepping. You said it's not a promise. He says not a prophecy. He said it's a promise. So he's going off of your premise, but I don't like it. I don't like it. Okay, it's okay. I like it. If we're just able, okay, it's nice. But this is the answer that really made sense to me. Okay, okay, and it's by a book of commentaries, right? A book of commentaries, and it's very simple, right? Very simple. So it says like this. So he's going on this word that I brought up, Morasha, right? Morasha, procession, right? The Holy One, blessed be He, has raised my hand to swear that I will give the land to Israel as a possession, and I will give the land as your inheritance, right? So this is what he says. So he brings Bakia, right? Because this is a set of commentaries. So he said he's being Bakia. He's Bakia. He's a very, very big commentator. And listen to what he says. He asked this question: why is it written possession and not inheritance? He just said Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, and I will give it to you as a possession. Why is he saying possession? It's an inheritance. You just told me you swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov to give me this land. And then you're going to give it to me as a possession? What do you mean? So he says like this. This teaches us that the Israelites will die in the wilderness, but their children will live and inherit it. You like that? You like that? So yeah, so he went. Go ahead. That was for you.
Okay, all right. Baruch Hashem. All right. Okay. Bring. Okay. Bring us there. Bring us there.
Yeah.
Where we get to the place where we say this is because he says possession versus inheritance. Because it's interesting because when the Tanakh is translated like into English in this English version that we have, that has the two, has the Hebrew and has. So are they saying that the word was solely possession, or was the word inheritance?
No, the word only means possession. I brought it up.
It only means possession.
Okay. Yeah. So hold on, let's go back to it.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so we can just look at the word because this is the main point. This is the main, as they say, the main ikr, right? The main ikr of this whole conversation right now. He's going off of this word right here. This word here, morasha, right? You see that? Possession. See, I mean, it's a possession, right? Lachem marasha aniyasha. Right? Okay, wait. Sorry about that. The point is that, yeah, so the point is, so it's not, the word is not inheritance. The word inheritance is a completely different word. So he caught that point and said, hey, why are they saying possession? Go ahead.
Okay, so I guess, so if the sage is reading, if they're reading this, this particular sage, if he is reading it with, like we're reading it, like, is he more modern? Like, is he reading when we're reading, or are we looking at a sage that, like for example, like Rashi, for example, right?
Yeah.
So
the point is, Baki is like is in that frame of like, Rabbi. This is not. The point is just saying there's thousands of commentaries, all by like holy guys, right? So for me, I like to look at different commentators to see different perspectives to satisfy my desire, right? To be clear on what's going on. So this particular sage, Bakia, Rabbeinu Bakia, he saw the word possession. And so it's an interesting word, possession, from even a Hebrew or English standpoint, because it's a possession, meaning that once God said that to him, that was his possession. That was his possession.
Oh, so
That future land was his possession. And all the Jews of that generation, it was their possession. That's how it became their future generations' inheritance.
okay, okay. Ah, I got you. So, in other words, what you're saying is what now I get it. I get it now. So it's like if I tell you I'm just trying to frame this understanding because this is good. This is good. So what this is, let's say you're in Washington D.C. Okay, and you inherit land in Florida. Okay, but the deed is given to you in Washington D.C.
Exactly.
Okay, now you get on a plane to go to Florida to basically, to dwell in and to see your land, right? But something happens where, God forbid, and it's just hypothetically speaking, something happens where you're not able to make it there. That you're no longer here on the earth.
It was a plane
right?
crash. Plane crash.
Plane crash. Okay, but your son
There you go.
gets the deed,
there you go.
and he's able to complete the journey.
There you go.
The land belonged to you while you was in the plane, while you were in DC. But by the time you you didn't make it to Florida.
Exactly.
But your son, so it became an inheritance throughout your generation. Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's powerful.
Yeah. And the thing about it, and I'm sure if I searched even further, I would even find more people that even brought out different things. So the point is, it's not in a place of servitude. It's in a place of intellectual expansion, right? And to be able just to go and dig and see different perspectives and have your thoughts and see who else maybe thinks like this, or maybe there's a certain aspect of your thought that's like this person, or maybe you have a totally different way, but you put now your mind and your thoughts in the world of other thinkers for thousands and thousands of years, that you have access to the information, right? And they had that dynamic. So anyways, I just wanted to bring that out just in terms of like a way to come to conclusions, right? When we read something and we have a thought, to be like, that's an interesting thought. Like, yeah, because for me, the way I read it, right, the way before I found Bakia's response, what I was thinking was, well, maybe God is giving us an insight to how he sees the soul and the continuum of the Israelite, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's I actually if you look, remember I was telling you about like the correction of the soul.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I was seeing that as well, and I was trying to like kind of work through that, just really work through it. And I believe it's there. I believe that information is there.
Yeah, look, that's the point. That's the point. Is that we can take, like, say, like we're learning Rav Ashlag, right? So now we could see that whole process of, the aspect of the desire to receive, the desire to share, and everything, right? We could see the dynamic with the concealment of the Creator and bringing us into darkness. You could see that whole thing played out with Yosef and his brothers, right? How the brothers had to go through all this challenges of this in Egypt, and this whole thing happening, and is making go through suffering and this, but he was cleansing them.
That's right.
For unification, right? And so, but we're learning about the principles of that system right now. And now we could look into the Torah with those principles, like, I see you there. I see you.
Yeah,
I see you talking to me, Hashem, in this way through the story, in this configuration. I can see how you're talking to me because I'm working off of these principles, right? And so now we can start seeing the designs. Go ahead.
That's interesting because earlier I don't know if it was Shabbat that we were going through the prayer shot, but we were talking about, like when you hear like there are preachers, there are pastors that preach sermons, right? And they preach the same sermon over and over again on sometimes the exact same day. It's like a schedule. And if you're not paying attention, you'll hear the same sermon a year later, over and over and over again. And the reason for that is because there is a lack of study. There's a lack of study involved with that. It's kind of like we got a program, to roll with. But I was pointing out to the children. I said, I have this set called Pearls of Torah. Okay, it's Penin Torah,
Yeah.
and it's there's like there's volumes of it, right? And they come out with a new one like every year, and it's commentaries on the parashahs. And so I think about it like this. I showed them, I said, what's interesting is I can go to the parashah, the Torah portion here today, and then I can get the book, the volume from last year, and you're going to get almost a total different perception every time. And the only way you can do that is if you do have study of all these different ideas and understandings, and it's always progressive. So it's progressive because man, all the Torah portion, like doing the Torah portion, oh man, that seems kind of maybe mundane, right? But it's not. It's not, because every time you read it, there's something new, a new perception, a new understanding, and this has been going on for thousands of years. It's very powerful.
This conversation, yeah, and join in. And the thing is, one of the biggest, points of, accomplishments, for me, like as as a teacher in this context, is for you at a point to get to the place of clarity and confidence that you can write your own commentaries, your own thoughts on these different verses for your sons to learn them. You know what I'm saying? Later on, right? Like to pass that on, and both of you guys, obviously, right? But specifically, this idea of lineage, right? And creating, tools, because your information of how you understand it is more important than Rashi's for your kids, right? Now they could maybe look at your thoughts and read other scholars and say, oh, well, it's like my dad. My dad says like this. Oh, or my grandfather says like this, or my great grandfather said like this, right? And so it's so important that this opening up this body work, because on one commentary you may bring a Rashi, you may bring a Rambam, you may bring the Rav Ashlag, you may bring whoever, right? So it's just saying that being in this mindset of saying like, you know what, my knowledge is just as important as anyone else's knowledge that's ever existed on planet Earth, right? And any other thought is a denial of God, right? So the idea is to be able to say like, no, I gotta learn the commentaries and all the different styles and that. So when I write mine for my kids to learn, right? You want to hear something funny? I'll say a really funny story, like, and we'll go into Rav Ashlag. But this girl, she was like, I don't know, it was a story she told, and I thought it was like deep, but she was like, this girl, she was like divorced, basically, grew up very religious, married a guy who was super religious, and they were very young. And she was saying that, they didn't know how to interact with each other on a physical level, right? Because they were young, right? Kids, they're married, the whole thing. So he said one of the things that really was difficult for her to get past, and it was like she said it was such a turnoff, that she said, anytime he wanted to be romantic, before he would want to be romantic, he'll start reading his grandfather's commentaries. to bring the holiness into the conversation, the energy, and he'll start reading. And she said, it just turned me off every time. Like every time, like he said, it drained everything out of me. It was this, and I was crying when she was telling me this. It was so hysterical. The way she said, we'd be sitting at the bed, and then he asked me what I thought about it, and it's just like, I do not want to think about your grandfather, this old guy who was just at our wedding. It's not like a guy who's passed away. He's alive right now. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, and so he was going to. So anyway, so the point is saying it's a level, but it's a real thing in these communities that it's like, no, you have to write your commentaries, you have to write your perspective, and your commentaries can grow every year. This is how I was thinking in 2025, 2026. This is how I'm thinking too. So it's just that process of anyway. So it's going to Rav Ashlag and get this party going, and we're on some deep levels. Hey, did you get a chance to catch Zion Lex last night?
No, we didn't. We
Yeah,
didn't.
yeah, yeah. I was on. We were on there again. We're. I mean, hey, you know, they're learning what you're learning.
Ah,
Yeah, we're doing
mm,
Rav Ashlag. We had like he said there was last night. I mean, it was weird because he said when we were doing a live that he said it was close to 400 people on the live. But then I looked at the numbers; it never moved from last night. So I don't know if there's something wrong or what. But at a time, so we're teaching a lot of people this same stuff, that we're learning. Hold on. Yeah, and it's big. It's big. He's into it. So we're gonna go. We're gonna keep going forward with the whole thing. We'll see where it goes. It's exciting. It's a lot of energy. A lot of energy, and it allows us to really address like some issues that we have in our community that are unique to us. Because we've been given so much bad information. Okay, so it says Uwe Kavera Emeronu. So it says like this. He says we have stated that the last thing. Okay, so okay, just to backtrack a little bit, we're in this dynamic of this perfection of the body, right? So we understand the soul comes in, the body, the soul comes in connected to Hashem, connected to pure light. As it comes into this reality, into the body, it develops this intelligence of desire to receive, and in this process of the desire to receive is the mechanism that we have to correct in this lifetime. We do it through Torah mitzvot. We correct the soul, and we're getting to this understanding that once the soul is corrected, it does its job. How long ever it is. It could be, people see like young kids or people and they say, how could they die? How could this? Because they did the correction. That soul has lived many lifetimes, and they only had a little bit of work to do, right? And they did it. What it is, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's not for me to figure out. But the point is just saying we are here as long as our soul needs to be corrected, right? And so when that correction happens, our body gets buried. There's a whole process, and everyone's sad, and the body's in the ground, right? And then that body that's in the ground, once that body fully decomposes, that soul leaves and it goes up to the heavens. And then as it goes up into the heavens, it chills. And there's an appointed time where that soul will come back into this world. And in that time, that soul will be given its original body, and that original body will be miraculously transformed to a perfected state. But that body itself won't achieve its perfection until it gets the full body, the new body. What is the new body? The new body is the corrected body that's in the place of complete sharing, right? And so that's where we're at right now, and we're still understanding this process. So we've already stated that the first stage leads inevitably to the third stage, right? The first stage being the soul that needs to be corrected in a future reality, right? And the third stage is that the soul gets achieves that correction and receives this body in this future reality and totally connects, right? So he says, so everything in the plan of the initial stage of creation will will be fulfilled. Nothing that was present in the initial plan of creation shall be omitted. In the third stage, see in chapter 15. Therefore, the first stage necessitates resurrection of the deceased bodies. That is to say, the extradation. What is it? I can't say this word. Can you guys see this word? Is EXAGGER rated? Ex, ex, ex,
Exaggerated.
how do you say it?
Exaggerated.
I don't know if it's exaggerated. Oh yeah, it is. Exaggerated.
Mhm.
Okay, I don't know if it. So that is to say that the exaggerated desire to receive. Okay, the exaggerated desire. It's like I have to read English words and Hebrews. It's the same now. Like when you grow up in America, you just read everything. It's like natural. Now it's like I look at the words, I'm pronouncing them. It's like the way your brain processes information changes. We have to deal with all this reading of Torah stuff. But anyways, so it says this. See, I just forgot it. So it says this agri. Uh, see, exactly. So anyway, so it says the desire to receive, which has destroyed, which has been destroyed, and had decomposed in the second stage, right? So that desire to receive is transformed in the second stage, right? now must return a life anew, right? So this is what we're talking about. Now it has to come back. It will be greater and more significant when resurrected with no limits at all. The resurrected body must contain their flaws. That way, they can begin their service anew in order to transform the expanded desire to receive so that they will become have an equal desire to give. So I think that requires a little reflection on. Okay. Okay. So he says, okay, he's explaining right now, what he's explaining is this process of why does God have to create this old body before he gives us this new body? Okay. And so what he's saying in essence is by when you're reincarnated and you come back with your old body that's imperfected, that the healing process of this body is in some way it expands the desire to receive, right? Because the body is still not kosher yet, right? So let's just see if we can understand this. Okay. Veze, okay, so what is it? Okay, so we have doubled our benefit. First, we have placed all the desire to receive. Okay, so he said, first, we place to receive all the goodness, pleasure, and the softness in the plan of creation. Since we have already had a body in the second stage with an expanded desire to receive, which leads to the third stage. Okay, to pleasure to pleasures that are proportional to the earlier stage of desire, as discussed. Second, our receiving in this manner is only for the purpose of giving satisfaction to our Creator. Hence, this type of receiving is considered giving. This will also equate the forms the equation of forms means binding with God, with the form in the third stage. Hence, the first stage actually requires the resurrection of the dead. Okay, okay. I just want to be very clear about this. So let's figure this out. Okay, okay. So let's try this again. It's worked. It's not so easy, right? Okay, so it says we've already stated in the first stage leads inevitably, eventually to the third stage. Okay, so first stage leads to the third stage. Okay, we got that. Everything in the plan of the initial stage of creation will be fulfilled, right? This is in the first stage. Nothing that was present in the initial plan of creation will be omitted, right? In the third stage, right? So everything that exists in the first stage is fully manifest in the third stage. He said, therefore, the first stage necessitizes resurrection of the dead. Okay. So therefore the first stage, okay. So he's saying the resurrection of the dead and the first stage are connected. Why? He said, because he's saying in essence that in the first stage is talking about the process of transformation and entering this new world, right? So he's saying that process of entering the new world is this process of leaving the world of the desire to receive. So what is the process of leaving the world of desire to receive? It's the correction of the soul and leaving the body in this reality, which becomes decomposed, right? Okay, so he says, that is to say, I got your word now, the exaggerated desire to receive, which has been destroyed and has decomposed in the second stage, must return anew. It will be greater and more significant when resurrected. Okay, with no limits at all. So the true potential, the true desire to receive is when we come back into this world, right? He says, and there's no limits. There's no limit, like not no limit records, but no limits to the potential. And he says, and the resurrected bodies must even contain their flaws, right? He says, that way they can begin their service anew in order to transform the exaggerated desire to receive so that it will become equal side desire to give. God, it's not so clear. I mean, because what he's saying here, he's saying that when the soul comes back down into this world, it's at a complete expanded state, way more than it was during the lifetime of our body, right? When we're living now, the true desire that we have is going to come manifest. And so he's saying that when we come back with this expanded desire, that God gives us our old body contained with flaws. So I guess these flaws that exist in the body, I guess we'll learn more about what these flaws are there for us to transform that desire. So I guess there's still some type of work that needs to be done when we come back into this world because we're in this expanded consciousness. This is what I'm getting from it, but we're going to keep going. And then he says, then we have doubled down our benefit. First, we place all the receive. First, we have a place to receive all the goodness and pleasure and softness of the plan of creation, since we already had a body in the second stage with a exaggerated desire to receive, which leads to the third stage, to the pleasures that are proportional to the earlier desire to receive, as discussed. Second, our receiving in this manner is only for the purpose of giving. Okay, there we go. So now he's saying when the soul comes down and it has this new desire this expanded desire to receive. Now, with this new body with the flaws, it's still receiving, but it's now receiving at a new level. This body that's giving is receiving at a new level. What is this new level? We're receiving only for the sake of giving, right? We're acting completely like the creator at this stage. So the second is our receiving in this manner is only for the purpose of giving satisfaction to the creator. Hence, this type of receiving is considered complete giving, as we talk about in chapter 11. This will also be equal in form, that the equal form means the binding with God from the form. So it's an interesting thing. You're saying it's a different type of desire to receive. It's a desire to receive that brings you close to the creator. So there's two desires to receive, you could say. There's a desire to receive that removes you, and there's a desire to receive that brings you closer. But it's the same body. It's the same body. But that same body has a corrected soul. And that corrected soul is expanded. And so now this corrected soul can go inside of this body that has flaws and transform it into the frame of desire to receive, to give to the creator. The soul has complete dominion over the body at this point. And so he says, and hence the first state actually requires the resurrection of the dead. So he says the resurrection could occur only towards the end of the process of repair. That is to say, at the end of the second stage. Yes. Okay, so that's when it starts. At the end of the second stage, when the soul is totally corrected. And he says resurrection can only happen once we have become worthy of negating our exaggerated desire to receive, right? And once we have received the desire to give, and after we became worthy of all the lofty levels of the soul, which are referred to as the nefesh, the ruach, the shama, the chaya, and yakida. He says, then due to our service in negating the desire to receive, we would have reached the greatest stage of perfection. Only then will it be possible to replace the body. Then the exaggerated desire to receive will not be damaged due to the body's way of separating us from our bond to God. On the contrary, we will overcome the body and we will give it the form of giving as discussed. See, I was a little bit ahead of this. Okay, so that's the point, right? So this idea of saying that this aspect of Hashem, it's like, It's an interesting idea because we think, oh, resurrection of the dead is over. No, resurrection of the dead is a demonstration of the power of the perfected soul, right? And the perfected soul over the body, and that the perfected soul has the ability to transform the physical body and to turn it into something sharing. Now, someone could ask the question, do we have the power now to do that? I don't know. So it says, Zeuve emet. Okay, it's true. Kin who hagi hag bachol midi. So he says like this: the same is true for any person with bad traits, which means which we want to rid ourselves. At first, we must remove it from ourselves extremely and completely, such that none of it remains. I guess like going cold turkey. Only after that can we accept some of the traits again, directing it towards the middle path. So, like, say a person has some type of an addiction in some type of way. Like, say they drink too much alcohol, right? And so what he's saying here, he said the only way to transform it is that you have to cut it completely, right? And he says like you could come and he says and only then later can you accept some of it again for the middle path. So say a person says I only want to drink on Shabbat, I only want to drink at a Suda mitzvah, right? I'm just using that as an example, right? And he says as long as it's not the as long as it has not first been completely removed from us, we cannot direct it to the proper middle path. Okay, so we'll keep going. So he says, this is the meaning. So he says, this is the meaning of the statement of the sages. That is, in the future, the dead will resurrect with their blemishes, which will be healed. As discussed, this means that the people will be resurrected with the same body once they once had, including the aggrandized and unrestricted desire to receive. The expressions, including their blemishes, refers to the ways in which the body is formed by the system of the world's impurity prior to being purified, somewhat through the Torah and mitzvot. Only then later is the body resurrected with impure state with its blemishes, and it will be healed, and it will achieve an equal this the equal it will achieve the oh my god, I can't, it would achieve its ideal form. Ve'amru ta'am. He says, and the sages said that reason for resurrection with the blemishes is so that others will not say that this is another. This means that people will not say that the resurrection person is in the form of other than what the plan of creation. It's a big statement. For the plan of creation includes the exaggerated desire to receive, designed to receive all of good in the plan of creation. But in the meantime, the body consists of the klipa, the husk, and it must be purified. And in the end, it must be the same for that resurrected body, including everything, the same original thing. So the concept of coming back in the original body is making a statement to us as the reader, as a person who's going to experience this, that the person that I am now is connected to that perfect reality. But I have to go through this process of correction. And by the process of correction, I'm able to reunify with my original self after death and to be in its full expression. It's almost like the concept of death is just a pit stop, right? It's just a pit stop on the racetrack, right? And you pull over for a little while, you get some new tires, you get refueled, you get the whole thing. The guy comes out, drinks some Gatorade, the whole thing, and he gets back on the road and he goes. This is lifetime. We're here to correct the soul, and we have pit stops. Pit stops are called death, right? But as we see, that pit stop keeps going, right? On and on and on and on. And it would actually be a completely different body that's unworthy of all the good plan. And he says, so if we came back as a different person, then it's like, oh, well, there's something wrong with you. But in the future reality, you are a process of perfection in the same way that there's a banana that's growing on a tree that may not be fully ripe. If you eat it, it's bitter. Okay. So we're going to stop here because the next part is focused on our purpose, but we're going to do some halakha as always, but we want to talk it out a little bit. So some thoughts, reflections.
I was just thinking about how when you have like students and you're correcting their work, whether it be an equation or a composition that they're writing. I was actually talking to the children yesterday, and one of the things, if you remember being in school, the teacher wouldn't just take your work that she gives you an equation. Of course, she knows the answer, the final results when she gave you the equation, and you do the work, and she looks at it and she sees that you got it incorrect. So she doesn't take that equation and just like black it all out so you can't see your error, but she actually would like just put like maybe a little line through it or circle it so that you can see, okay, this right here is a problem. You need to correct it. You need to go back and revisit it. And so even when you go and make the correction, you can still see that this equation, this is what it was. This is what the problem was. And so I just kind of was thinking about that as we were going through it. Like, yes, it would really be awkward for us to be resurrected and not actually see the total process of everything being corrected. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Also, just the whole process is really intriguing, because what it's telling me is that when we die, if we put in the work, because I'm taking it that everything we just read through is based upon the soul and the body of the righteous, because this process seems to only fit for the righteous, in that you've put in the work to correct the soul while you're alive, and then when you die, the soul is like I said, is placed for a moment. The body begins to decompose, which almost represents a type of fire, a type of purification, like you're going into a furnace. And while you're in that space, your body decomposes. But to us, the decomposing is naturally looked at as just the physical flesh of the body, even down to the bones, right? But in reality, that is the process that the sin nature is being burned away. The whole aspect of these exaggerated desires is being burned away, literally, in that way. And so, therefore, when the resurrection comes, the soul then has a renewed body without a sin nature. That the sin is not it's not spiritually connected to these garments that we wear, and so now the soul is not having to correct this body, because this body, those impurities have been burned away. And so when there's the reconnection, now the soul itself, because it has the I want to say I don't want to say it like that, but really an exaggerated desire to share way in the most holiest ways. When it enters into the body has to accept this new reality, and it's not receiving anything from the dark side, and it's only receiving light. And whenever there's light, there has to be healing. It just reminds me of Ezekiel 37, whereas the dry bones, you see the bones, and the bones they stand up, right? And then they have flesh, but then they're standing there, and they have all their flesh, have all their members, their sinews and everything, but they still don't have breath yet. And then the ruach comes upon them. They receive a soul. They receive their soul back, and that's when there's like the fulfillment of that state. This is very very interesting.
Yeah, and the thing is, and we touched on it earlier, was seeing these as patterns and seeing them as designs in your head, and then being able to go and read the pasukim and to read the stories inside the Torah and see God communicating on another level, right? Where you can see these designs coming out on how people are interacting and renewals and vanishings and reappearings and concealment and revealments, and how, like, if you were going to say, oh, well, that's just like, the process of how the soul comes into the body, and the process of how the intelligence changes from sharing to receiving, to go through a process of correction to be elevated again. And when we talk about going into, Egypt, going down into Egypt, right? So now we can understand that this was a cleansing process that B'nai Israel had to go through, right? That's what Egypt represents now, from what we're learning by Rav Ashlag, right? That soul needed to be corrected, right? And the first stages of that correction was what? Through suffering. The second stage of that correction was what? Receiving the Torah, because the Torah and the mitzvot also correct the soul. So you see both experiences. The soul of Israel is going to get corrected no matter what. So the Torah was a gift. And you think about before the Torah, before Egypt, what was happening? They went through all types of suffering. Rachel died. Dinah was kidnapped. Joseph was sold into slavery. The brothers were fighting. I mean, all types of things happened. You know what I mean? And so it was a very tough life. But after they received the Torah on Mount Sinai, that's when a lot of the suffering changes, right? They had other issues, other challenges, but it wasn't the same issues that existed during the time of Egypt. So the point is saying, if I can learn that out, then I have to now look at my own experience as an African American and say, hey, if slavery was a cleansing by over there, that means God said that is what slavery is created for in the world, for all people, for all times, right? That a certain group of people were supposed to go through a process of a purification process. And at the end of that purification process, many of us are now clinging to the Torah, right? Which takes us out of that suffering, right? The suffering of not having family, the suffering of not having community, the suffering of addictions, the suffering of arrogance, of ego, of vanity, all that's the suffering, right? It's destroyed our whole entire community, right? Before we had families, right? We had community, we had businesses, right? But we had Judeo-Christian values, right? But it wasn't strong enough to fight the Sitra Akra that was out there against us, right? When we look at, go ahead.
Hey, it also, I want to share this very quickly here. It also gives us a deeper understanding of why certain things happen, and why, and explains a lot of mysteries that we've had. We were talking about this yesterday. When our second oldest daughter, when she passed away, okay, after and that's a whole nother story as far as all of the things that was going on then. But when after the funeral, we come back home, and that night, no, I think maybe a couple of days later, we were just grieving, just really grieving, mourning. And I went to sleep, and I had a dream. It was very, very, very quick dream. And what I saw was, like, very close to me. I saw her face, okay, but it was like a bus, okay, it was like a bus, like, like you see a bus, like you can't see past this point down, but you can see like from here, shoulder up,
shoulder line,
right? And it was, she was her body was like she had gained all her weight back, and so forth, but she had on a white head covering, and she had on all white. And she was very beautiful, but there was something that always like stood out to me. She was looking at me, and she was smiling, It's like we were like face to face. I mean, like here. And she was smiling, but there was something, she had a scar. And I was always very puzzled about that scar. I was like, what? Because when she passed on, she didn't have a scar on her face. Okay. But her body, had went through a lot of changes because she had leukemia. And and it of course her body, there was scars, in other areas because of that. But it always puzzled me because she had this scar on her face, and when my eyes went to that scar, I became puzzled. And then her smile, her smile became very sober. It became very sober, and she just kind of looked at me, and then she turned because it was like a bright, like a bright light, like boom, like over to the matter of fact, it was like towards the east. Now think about it. And she turned towards it, and then you can see like she just went towards it, and that was. I woke up and I was excited because that was a sign to me that everything was, that she was well. Okay, that she was well. But reading what we're reading now, many, many, many years later, because she passed away in 2017. Reading now that the body gets resurrected and it still has all the scars, and then the soul comes and it then basically restores and heals the body completely. This is like this gives understanding, and I'm quite honestly, I guarantee there's more experiences in many others' lives that have gone through similar things, and they kind of question like what is this about? Like I don't understand it. But seeing that the sages, uh, obviously they had to experience some of this stuff. They had to go through some of these things.
They did.
And it became real to them, and they expressed it and shared it with us.
That's it.
It's just like, wow,
That's it.
Man.
Yeah, that's the first thing that I actually thought about when we started going through this, and hearing that, I was like, wow, that dream that you shared years ago was that, the scar was still there. It's like, I don't remember having a scar, but it's almost like a message, and a message like, the body being resurrected in it's that form of still having those things that were blemishes in the body. And so that was, that I actually thought about that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's the thing, is one of the biggest secrets is that the Torah itself is everything that we experience around us. That's the true Torah. The Torah is our lives, is what we experience and what we see in nature and all. That's Torah. It's the teachings. God is teaching us about His universe. The same stuff we can read about a tree in the Torah, it applies to the tree out here. The same thing with the bird. Now we're in the soul. We're in the souls in the process. That's not that's not a sci-fi thing. This is real life. This is real life. I had a rabbi who is an African American rabbi, and he's talked about this publicly. And I mean, after I did research, but like I was at this thing over here in Israel, and he was there, so I'm like, I'm like a speaker guy, right? I'm always the guy speaking. So he was there, and I said, all right, Rabbi, what do you got for us? What do you got? Right? Give us your deepest Torah. And he told us a Torah that like brought us to tears pretty much. And he told us a story about how him and his wife was pregnant with a child that they told him the child's not going to be alive. He's not going to live, like if he's born. And so they had to make the decision to terminate the child or to give that life a period of time to live, to correct their soul, even though that they know the kid's going to die. But giving the kid life for them as Jews is saying that, well, even if he's alive for 10 seconds, 30 seconds, that's what his soul needed. So if I terminate the child, he won't have that opportunity. So he just told us that. I was like, hey, I'm out, man. Hey. But that's a level, though, that him and his wife knew that the child would not be with them. But to fulfill the mitzvah, they already have tons of children. To fulfill that mitzvah, They went through that. So it's just saying that it's that spiritual knowledge, will it makes you into a different human being. You know what I'm saying? In a different perspective. So yeah, so the Torah is outside of us, right? So let's learn a little bit of halakha. Hold on, let me get it for us. Yeah, this is real life stuff, man. This is real life stuff. Hold on. Okay. So we were doing Shabbat yesterday, but I got a call or I got a message from your husband about this whole thing with the talit, right? And so and then, maybe tomorrow, or I think we should still incorporate something on Sunday, just because it's like starting on Wednesday, it's a different flow, and it's good for us just to be connected, right? So it could be a shorter class, just Rav Ashlag, but we should still do something on Sundays and then go to Wednesdays, but we should still just like we did last week. You know what I mean? It's just the same process. It's just for me, I just feel better because I'm meeting with almost all my students on Monday. You know what I mean? Like all day, it's like this class, this class, this class. So like, but being on that same page, because by the time we connect on Wednesday, it's already a new world. The world's over. The battle's done. You know what I mean? But anyways, so we're gonna do something on Friday, of course. Um, we should do something. Yeah, we'll do something. I'll confirm. But I'm pretty sure we'll do something tomorrow. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. And then also Sunday. Okay. So it says Gadol mitzvah tzitzit. Always means Gadol means great. Okay. So he says the mitzvah of tzitzit is very great. It's interesting language they're using. For according to the scripture, all the mitzvahs depend on it. As it says, and you will look upon it, and you will remember all the mitzvahs of Hashem. The numerical value of the word tzitzit is 600. And the 8 fringes and the 5 knots make up 613. So he says, therefore, every Jew should endeavor to have a talit katan, which is the small one you sent, and then which should be wear the entire day. And it should be made in white sheep's wool, measured 3/4 of a amma, which you do, whatever, that you got the Sephardic one, you're good. And he says, in the length of half a amma in width. Others maintain that it should be a amma by amma. Those who make the talit katan, sewing the sides together, making it a shirt, should take care of both sides of the garment are left open. So I have the one you have, and I also have another one that like literally fits as a t-shirt, right? So I wear that. And one important thing to always keep in mind too, it's really important to have the seat above the t-shirt, right? Unless you have one that's made like I'll show it to you another time because I'm wearing it, but the seat that you showed me, you should have a t-shirt on underneath it, so it's not on the skin. If that makes sense. So you have the seat, and I mean you have a regular t-shirt, and on top of it you have the seat because it's a holy garment. It's not. I know you know that. I'm just saying it's not a t-shirt, so we want to like treat it with like a certain. He says, okay. So he says, okay, the greater part visible, or the greatest part of the visible on the left opening, even the hooks may not be joined in open parts. Okay. Also, every Jew should endeavor to have a large garment of tzitzit attached to wear during prayer. You sent me that one as well. He should endeavor to have a beautiful garment. Similarly, all mitzvahs should be performed with as splendor as possible. So you want to look at it like, wow, this is amazing, this is cool, right? And he says, and you want to feel good about it. You're honoring. It's a mitzvah. Like it's not like something you're doing that is good for you. It's like, of course, it's good for you, but it's like literally you're expressing God's will, right? When you do that. Similarly, all mitzvahs should be performed with such splendor as possible, as it said, "This is my God, and I shall glorify Him." And we have learned from this, adorned be with the mitzvahs. You should take care to purchase tzitzit from a trustworthy person, to be sure that they are spun and twisted specifically for the purpose of tzitzit in accordance to the prescribed laws. Tzitzit should also be adequately, it should be long, well, depending on the height, right? But you're fine. Im she'im asafar asfar lo ele be. Sorry, vad kilit shel bishatan. You know, these are like three aspects of Hebrew here, because like when we were learning by Rav Ashlag is like basically almost like modern Hebrew, right? Like in a way, like what he's writing, because this is basically discourse. It's not like he uses a lot of obviously biblical words and things. Over here, the Torah itself has its own, language of Hebrew. The Tanakh has its own, frame of Hebrew, and then now with this, it's a lot of obviously words that are in Torah, but it's also written in a kind of like a frame. Okay, so we're jumping around to different dialects. Bottom line, so it's, if only a linen garment is available in which it's prohibited to tie tzitzit because of wool, because of the prohibition of shatnez. So shatnez is that we don't mix wool and linen together, which is a whole big conversation of that, and we could have that conversation, but it's a halakha. According to one opinion, the corners of the garment should be made of leather, to which this is if you have only a wool thing. This is not applied to you. So he says this is like in dire circumstances. So he said you should make of the garment, you should make of leather, to which the woolen tzitzit can be tied. However, so separated from the wool, right? And so he's saying the leather would be like a partition, partition between it. So he says the others, however, dispute this and maintain that it should not be done. So some people said we don't mix wool and linen. And it's a whole big conversation, and people think it's something rabbis came up with. It goes all the way back to the beginning of creation with Cain and Hevel. It's a whole story. So it says, Mahane Kev, She Machnisim Bo Laeta Hasisa Lo Yehie Rachut. So he's saying, so he's bringing verses now. Okay. So maybe we'll stop here, because he's about to go on a whole thing of all these different biblical verses and what they mean in different parts. But I just at least want to introduce the idea of tzitzit, because Shabbat is something I want to focus more on the halakha, but you have to go back yourself and read it all. You got to read all the halakhot of tzitzit, how it works, what not to do if this happens, that. I mean, we can learn together, but it's good for you to go into it on free time. And if you have questions, then I could go and look at it. If I don't know it off the top of my head, I could go and look, and then we could discuss different points, right? But it's important that all the things that we do, that exactly what the sages say, how we should use it, when we should use it, and everything, that we're in line with that, because now we put ourselves a part of the greater body of Israel that's keeping the mitzvah, right? Like we're part of all the people, even if we're not in the same room. There's no time, space, and motion when it comes to God and God's will, right? And so when I put on my tzitzit, and Rabbi Pinchas and all the other people, when they put on their tzitzit and you put on your tzitzit, we're all in it together. And the rabbis in New Jersey and Chicago and Jerusalem, we're all doing these mitzvahs, and we're the only ones on planet Earth doing these mitzvahs with sincerity of God, with no idol worshipers and no idol, just us and Hashem, right? So it's only a few elite people on this planet Earth that are fulfilling these mitzvahs. It's right there. It's in the Torah. Some people are like, I don't care. I mean, I'm good. All right. So any thoughts, reflections? All right. So we're good. So God willing, we'll go back to tomorrow. The thing about tomorrow, the question is, if we're going to do Sundays, maybe we could just do something on the Parsha, right? We could do something light on the Parsha, and then we jump back in on Sunday on Rav Ashlag, and then we'll meet again starting Wednesday. So we'll do Sundays, and then Wednesdays all the way to Friday. So we only have 2 days separated.
Yes. Amen.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Baruch atah Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen. So you guys should have a great. Well, I'll see you guys tomorrow. But unless Mashiach comes, but.